Now's the time to be part of the team at Team Toyota. Step up to the plate with a winning lineup of new Toyota models like the new 4Runner, Grand Highlander, and coming soon, the all-new 2026 RAV4. Or find something perfect for your game plan and your budget with over 300 certified used Toyotas available. And don't sweat a trip to the IL. Our service and collision centers will have you back in the game in no time. So slide in one of our 3 locations in Princeton, Langhorne, or Glen Mills, or take a swing online at teamtoyota.net. Hello, and welcome in to the Phillies Talk Podcast presented by Team Toyota. I am Spencer McKercher, digital video producer, Spencer McKercher, host of the pod. We've done a lot of stuff. We need an intro, Sean Kane. I know I had a few friends say, hey, we need some intros and stuff like that. So for all those first-time listeners, my name is Spencer McKercher, and I am honored to be joined once again by Sean Kane, the host of Phillies pre- and post-game live. And does it all too. A lot of digital content and stuff. I feel like we're starting to feel like it's like a New Year pod here.
Yeah, New Year pod. We're introducing ourselves. We're all the different hats we wear around the office. Yeah, I produced the pre and post. I feel like I should introduce myself. Produce the pre and post game shows, as you mentioned. I do some writing for the website, podcasting. It's good to be here, Spence. Lots to talk about, and I appreciate the introduction.
Of course, man. Of course. Yeah. So now that the intros are away, hopefully that satisfied a few people.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are a longtime listener, welcome back. It's been a while since we talked to you. It's been almost a week as we sit down here on Sunday night. When you guys get this, it will be Monday morning. So happy Monday, happy new week to everybody. But yeah, the last time we talked to everybody, Sean Kane, was at 3 a.m. on Tuesday morning, technically, I guess, after the Phillies clinched their second straight National League East, and a lot has happened since then. So we are going to dive in to all of that stuff as the Phillies wrap up their last road trip of the season. And thank goodness the West Coast games are done for the time being. We could see possibly some more West Coast games as the playoffs roll around, and Red October is coming quickly, as now there's just 6 games remaining in the regular season. But yeah, they wrap up their last road game of the year on Sunday in a 9-2 ugly loss to the Diamondbacks. Kind of just the getaway. I guess we could start there, Sean, because there's a lot to get into. So we'll start with Sunday in the series with the Diamondbacks. 9-2 losers on Sunday, and just kind of a lifeless effort against Eduardo Rodriguez, the Diamondback starter, who came in with a high ERA, wasn't really pitching great, but the Phillies kind of just let him off the hook. He allowed 6 hits over 6 strong innings, but the Phillies kind of let him off the hook by going 1 for 14 with runners in scoring position.
Yeah, they had their opportunities, and it was a shame because going into it with Rodriguez, who you mentioned, his ERA was over 5. Ranger came in riding that hot streak. He had like a 1.47 in his previous 6 starts, so it looked good on paper, and it was a chance for them to win the series. Would have been their 7th straight series win. Finished with a winning road trip. Would have been 4-2 on the trip if they would have won, but the best laid plans did not work out on Sunday afternoon. It kind of unraveled quickly. The second inning was really Rangers' undoing, and it was kind of a shame. Like, he did give up a couple of hard hit balls. Corbin Carroll hit a 3-run home run that there was no doubt about that. Ketel Marte had a 2-run single, but all the hits that kind of set the stage in that inning, were infield singles. There was a bunt single, and then even before that, there were a couple bleeders, little defensive miscues here and there. So it's not like he got hit around too hard, Ranger, with the exception of a couple of hits. I know Ben Davis on our post-game show, he did the math during the game. If you take out like the Carroll home run and the Marte single, the average exit velocity was like 70 miles an hour on some of these hits. So it wasn't his day. A little bad luck, a couple hard hit balls, but the offense, left a lot to be desired against Rodriguez. They had their opportunities. Second inning, Alec Bohm leadoff double. Here we go. And they strand him. They stranded a runner on second a couple of times early in the game, and just couldn't really come up with many big hits other than Alec Bohm himself, who had 4 hits, which I'm sure we'll get to him in a little bit. But yeah, disappointing series finale on what could have been a really positive series win and a winning road trip. But all in all, you mentioned it was their last road game. I know they went 41-40 on the road for the season, which winning record on the road. Obviously, they're well north of 500 at home, so that's going to add up to a pretty good record when it's all said and done. But yeah, disappointing series finale on Sunday for sure.
It was, and but again, everyone, I've seen the reaction on social media and it has been great, but it's a getaway day for those guys. They're going to sleep in their own beds, maybe at some point tonight when they get in the late, or / early morning hours on Monday. But, they just spent all that time out west. It feels like it's only been a week, but it felt like it was a long time out there with the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks. Going back to Ranger real quick, it's his second shortest outing of the season. He only goes 4 innings, allows 7 hits. It just, and again, Rob Thompson mentioned that they just kind of wanted to pull him. They kind of pulled back a little bit after what I think he had 81 pitches on Sunday afternoon, but it's the second shortest outing that he's had besides the very first start of the year on May 4th, where he went 3 2/3. So this is just 4 innings.
Also against the Diamondbacks, both starts against Arizona. Yeah,
exactly. So yeah, he went 4 1/3 on July 20th against the Angels at home. So that was his third shortest outing of the season. But again, I'm not really too worried about Ranger. You mentioned it. It was so many like soft ground balls and Rob Thompson mentioned it after the game. The way this Diamondbacks team beats you, and we saw it in 2023, is with their speed. And with Corbin Carroll, shout out to him, 30-30 season for Corbin Carroll.
Yeah.
But that's how they get to you. And that's how they got to Ranger Suarez and this bullpen on Sunday. Kind of funny. To wrap up Sunday's game too, and then we'll get to a bunch of other things, like as you mentioned, Alec Bohm. We'll have to talk on that. But kind of little tensions and on Sunday with Tim Meza hits Ketel Marte after he allows the home run in the 6th inning. I believe it was either the 6th or the 7th, but Tim Meza hits Ketel Marte on the very next pitch after the home run. Marte kind of took exception to it. And then on the next inning, Eduardo Rodriguez comes out. And after allowed a base hit on the next pitch, Weston Wilson gets thrown behind him. Warnings were issued. But the whole thing goes back to, and this is just kind of the last thing I'll say about Sunday, just Torey Lovullo, you mentioned it in the office today, kind of has this thing with JT and the Phillies and all that. I don't think it needed to be warned. And obviously Rod Thompson also took exception to the warning where he kind of threw up his hands and let out some explicitives. But I mean, is there anything to that between the Diamondbacks and the Phillies and Lovullo?
Yeah, it didn't look like to me like that Meza was trying to hit Marte, but I get it. It's the next pitch after a home run. And I definitely think Rodriguez, when he threw that pitch that went behind Weston Wilson, I think that was pretty intentional, which I get. Hey, you hit one of our guys, you want to retaliate a little bit. But yeah, Lovullo, he seems to really latch on to these situations. It's a lopsided game. Mays is not trying to hit him, in my opinion. And then he comes out, he talks to the umps talk among themselves, and then they have to go ahead and issue the warnings after what happens, in the top half of the 7th. So, but yeah, it brought to mind to me a few years back with him and JT, things got heated. Everybody kind of gathered at home plate, and afterwards, I think Lovullo said something to JT, like, I got a lot of respect for JT, and I'd be protecting you if you were on my team too. And it was all misconstrued, and JT was cool with it, but yeah, that definitely brought to mind that instance, and it seemed to be a much ado about nothing. So we'll see. That's probably the last time these two teams are going to see each other this year. Now, the Arizona does have an outside chance to get into that wild card. They are right behind the Reds and the Mets, so they could sneak their way in. And obviously, they're a team that knows their way around the postseason a little bit from previous years. So maybe not, but I'd be shocked if anything really came out of this. If they were to see them in the postseason, it seemed to be a whole lot of nothing at the end of a lopsided game at the end of the series.
I'm with you. It makes me frustrated. Just like Pat Murphy in Milwaukee. I know it's your guy, but it was interesting. Just everyone calm down. I don't know where this hate, and this frustration comes towards the Phillies. I don't think they really have done anything this season, let alone in the past few seasons. We've only seen really one or maybe 2 altercations if you include the Jake Bird and Bryce Harper incident in Colorado. And then last season in September with the Rays when Bryce charged
from second base and Castellanos got drilled. Yeah.
Oh, so good.
It's interesting you mentioned Pat Murphy, though. The Diamondbacks, I'm taking this completely off track now. The Diamondbacks kind of remind me of the Brewers in that little things, running the bases, winning plays, you know what I mean? They're teams that I think give the Phillies trouble. Maybe not as talented as the Phillies, but they just kind of know how to win. They know how to do the little things, and they seem to play well, especially out there in Arizona against the Phils.
And maybe that's, again, we talked about it with Pat Murphy. Maybe that's a thing where the Phillies have all these big name players, all these multi-million-dollar, contracts and all that stuff. And these Diamondbacks and the Brewers, they don't really have those type of guys. And maybe that's they see it as, I don't think the Phillies are giving a lack of respect, but maybe just across baseball, it's like,
Right.
hey, these guys are coming in here talking about the Phillies. Maybe we have to hold our own, especially in Milwaukee and in Arizona.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe it's a nothing burger, but I mean, it had to talk about something other than a 9-2
Right.
loss. I mean,
No doubt.
and it's funny too, because I see people kind of freaking out, and even we had one of our coworkers here ask me how I'm feeling after they're getting crushed on Sunday, and I think everyone needs to calm down. Now, the runners in scoring position may be a little concerning, and we're going to get to really the biggest concern, wrapping up the Dodgers, talking about this lineup facing the starting pitching that they saw in LA. We'll get to that in a second too.
Yeah.
But is there any concern with 1 for 14 and runners in scoring position and leaving 13 men on base as there's 6 games left before Red October?
I'm not going to read too much into just Sunday. And generally, like, I know they seem to go through their peaks and valleys with the runners in scoring position, but I think across the board, generally they've been okay comparatively, to other teams in the National League. So, no, I'm good with it. I think the offense, since that Mets before Saturday's loss in Arizona, they were 16-5 in their last 21, including Friday night's win in Arizona, and the offense was averaging 6 runs per game over those 21 games, which is the most in baseball. So, like, for me to sit here and nitpick the offense after a couple of, not so hot games, obviously not a great game Sunday, I'm not going to do that. End of the road trip. You mentioned the getaway day. Come home, try to maybe get right a little bit. Now they do have to get, a couple guys. Schwarber had not a great, he had the RBI double on Saturday, but he had a tough day Sunday. He really hasn't looked that great in the Arizona portion of the road trip. So maybe get him going a little bit, heat him back up. A couple other guys. We'll see, if Turner can come back for a couple of games towards the end of the week. But no, I'm not freaking out about the offense. I'm not going there. I think the offense just had a couple of bad days, and get right against the Marlins and Twins, and we'll see how they do in October. That's all that really matters, as we know.
That's exactly, especially now with these games. There's only 6 games left. They have 3 games against the Marlins, 3 games against the Twins at home, which should be fun. But even Rob Thompson mentioned it after Sunday's loss in Arizona, kind of said, hey, we're going to start to pull some guys back a little bit. And again, whether that's a good idea or not, it is not to be seen yet, but we'll see how much Rob Thompson kind of pulls these guys back with just 6 games remaining, all at home against the bottom feeders, according to Ricky Bowe, and a Twins team that we'll see. But we'll get
Marlins won 10 of 11. 10 of 11.
As we sit back here on Sunday, they're 4 games back of that wild card spot.
Yeah, so they're not mathematically out. But yeah, they're playing well. They're not intimidated by the Phillies. And the Twins, I feel like, for that last series, it's like usually fan appreciation day on Sunday. They should have like a Twins appreciation day. Like, bring the front office onto the field. Thank you for Bader. Thank you for Durant. Like, talk about those guys really jumpstarting the Philly season. Like, thanks. Shout out Twins appreciation day. I think maybe Saturday or Sunday at the Yard.
It's honestly a good idea. Have literally just their front office come out. Maybe have Mick Abel come out too. Just thanks. Yeah, my time was great.
Right.
And now let's thank the Twins front office for giving maybe the 2 biggest players that were acquired at this deadline in all of baseball.
Yeah.
You mentioned some of those names like Kyle and some of the other guys. JT Realmuto really needs to step up after a tough West Coast swing. What about Bryce? Is there any concern with Bryce? Because once that calendar turned to September, which we knew Bryce was going to step up, and he did in that 4-game homestand against the Mets and even against the Royals.
Yeah.
But is there anything with Bryce? He only has 5 hits in his last 7 games. He's batting .208 in his last 7 games. He's batting .250 in his last 15 games. But we didn't really see the Bryce Harper that we're normally used to seeing, especially on Saturday against Zach Gallen. Gallen was pretty good, and Bryce's numbers against Gallen are crazy, even going back to the postseason in 2023. He swung at a bunch of first pitches, but I know we keep saying it, but I think Bryce maybe needs to step up here before the playoffs start.
Yeah, he had the big home run Monday night in LA, the night they clinched in the 8th inning, and then, it was kind of hit or miss the rest of the trip. His at-bats Saturday weren't great. Like you mentioned, swinging early in the counts. I thought he did hit a couple balls hard on Sunday. Marte robbed him of a couple of hits. Then he finally did get a hit in his last at-bat. So I thought he had better at-bats on Sunday. I also found an interesting pregame, Rob Thompson talking to the media out in Arizona on Sunday morning, mentioned that he planned to give Harper Sunday off. He was, how he plans ahead. Today was going to be an off day. And then I guess Harper called Rob Thompson, or reached out, text, whatever, saying he felt good. I want to be in the game. I want to play. So that was kind of like, went against Topper's original plans, and he played him. I think Rob Thompson's pretty conscious of, like, especially when they're on turf, getting guys days when they can. So that at least, he's healthy. He feels good. He went as far as to say, hey, I feel great. I want to play. I guess with the off day coming on Monday anyhow. But I found that interesting. But no, I thought his at-bats were better Sunday. But yes, if you step back, big picture, you're going to need generally more from him in a couple of weeks. And there's really no reason to think he won't step it up. He's done it in the previous 3 postseasons. So we shall see. But no, I thought his at-bats were better. Saturday wasn't great. Friday had a couple hits. And then Sunday, I thought the at-bats were better. Didn't have a whole lot to show for it. So I'm okay on Bryce. We'll see, how he finishes up the season. I'm sure he wants to get to 30 home runs. He's on 27 now, so maybe he gets a big home stand, hits a few out of the yard at home, finishes strong, and then he's locked and loaded for the postseason.
Yeah, because even going back to Rob's decision to pull some of these guys back, I still think we're going to get maybe 2-3 at-bats. I think they're going to play for this Miami series, especially to keep them out of the playoffs would be kind of sweet. Not saying that they're going to make it in the playoffs, and we'll get a bigger NL picture because we have to continue to laugh at the Mets. Is for the first time since April 5th, they are out of a playoff position.
Wow.
We'll get to that. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's a tough decision because, again, if you clinch this bye, which the magic number is now 2 as we sit down here on Sunday to clinch a first round bye, there's 3 games back of the Brewers, technically 4 since the Brewers had the tiebreak against the Phillies. But I still think there's going to be much, like, these guys are going to want to keep getting good swings off against the Marlins, against the Twins, back at home. Even with that, if you end up getting that bye and you have those few days off, it's been the big talking point around baseball over the last few seasons of, hey, if you get that bye, you really got to step up. We saw the Yankees and Dodgers both do it last year. But it's the big thing with the Braves. What are you going to do with simulated games during that week? And again, that's for a podcast down the road. But yeah, I'm hoping Bryce can turn it on here heading into Red October. And again, I feel like we've been saying that the same thing over the last few podcasts, but he's the showman. I trust him. I think he'll awake as the calendar even switches to October then. You mentioned it. Let's just wrap up some of these guys with the hitting, and then we'll hit on Aaron Nola before really the big story of the past few days, which is Nick Castellanos. But let's talk about Alec Bohm. I mean, my goodness, what a return from him. He makes his first start since September 7th on Friday against the Diamondbacks. And since then, he is 8 for 13, which is .615 average, 2 doubles, a home run, which he hit on Saturday, and he has 4 RBIs. And I know you had this in your show on Phillies Pregame Live on Sunday. Should Rob Thompson, and Rob kind of alluded to it after the game on Sunday, but are we going to see Alec Bohm in that 4 hole come Red October?
I think he's the leading candidate at this point to be in the cleanup spot. I just think JT, you've been hot there for a while in July into August, but he's cooled off. And you need somebody there to give, obviously, the big guys a little bit of protection, at least the best you can. So I think Bohm is probably there. And it wouldn't shock me if either Marsh or Bader is in that 5 hole. Obviously, you don't want to put 3 you can't put Bader in the cleanup spot, in my opinion, because then you go 3 lefties in a row, and then if you're putting Marsh wherever you're putting him. So to me, I think when Trey is back, I think it's going to be Turner, Schwarber, Harper, Bohm. I think likely in that cleanup spot, and then is Bader 5th? There's Marsh 5th. 5, 6, some combination thereof. Yeah, I think that's, to me, it would be. I'm sorry. I had initially, when I said Bader in the cleanup spot, he's not a left-hander, but with Marsh batting behind him, it would be a lot of lefties in the middle of the order. So to me, I think Bader is probably sliding into that 5 or 6 hole, depending on where you put Marsh. And Bohm, to me, to answer your question, is the cleanup man moving forward. I just think he's the best option there. And they don't have a whole lot of great options, but to me, I do think Bohm in the 4 hole makes sense.
What an intriguing storyline too. Just sticking with the lineup before we hit on Alec Bohm. Actually, real quick on Alec Bohm. It's been a lot of talk all season, all off season. There was trade rumors in the off season. He hasn't really stayed the healthiest this season so far, but for him to come in and have a huge series in Arizona like this, I feel like that has to boost his confidence. The shoulder's obviously feeling great. That has to be a huge, huge boost of confidence as we get ready for the playoffs, because if you have Alec Bohm sitting in the 4 hole, in the 5 hole, producing the way that he has produced this weekend, you're in good shape. You're in immaculate shape, because that's the Alec Bohm that we've expected to come through for this team. And In reality, he really hasn't. There's been multiple times where, again, he was in trade talks and all that, and the Phillies were still trying to figure out what they want to do with him. But I think there's a strong chance that Alec Bohm has a pretty good postseason. And if this weekend is in any indication, hopefully I am right about that.
Yeah.
But it is funny. Like, it's such a, obviously Trey Turner, when he comes back, is your leadoff guy. But I mean, Harrison Bader continues just to prove that he deserves maybe the leadoff spot, or like you said, maybe in that 5th or 6th spot, depending what you want to do with Marsh.
Yeah, agree. No, I do. I think Turner comes back. He's your leadoff guy. But yeah, Bader's been great there. Cooled off a little bit this weekend, but no, he's been really good, and I think he's a middle of the order guy. Whether that's 5th or 6th, I think that's where Bader's going to be. And yeah, just following up on what you said about Bohm, like it would be a heck of a redemption story, because we all remember how the postseason went for him last year, when he got benched for Game 2, didn't hit. A lot of slammed helmets, a lot of bad body language. Rob Thompson talked about it openly. Just basically, we need a little more of a jolt here, and we're going to go with Sosa in Game 2, which was huge. I mean, Alec Bohm was a starting third baseman for the All-Star team last year, and he gets benched in Game 2 of the DS. And then the offseason trade rumors. This year really hasn't gone as he's wanted, whether it be he's not as productive, slow start, started to come around, then he deals with the rib injury around the All-Star break, and the shoulder apparently has been bothering him for a while. So he, to the point where he took a week and a half off. But, I mean, he looked great in Arizona. That was like vintage Alec Bohm, driving the ball to all fields, some extra base hits. Big home run on Saturday night. Yeah, power, exactly. So it's huge. It's huge if they can get him going, put him in that cleanup spot behind Bryce. I think that'd be great. And if he can kind of have a big postseason, a big October, it'll be like all is forgotten from what happened last year.
And a cool stat from our buddy Schmankman. Remember Schmankman?
Schmankman, I do. That's Michael B's guy. Yeah,
Michael B's guy. I'm sorry, but he had a cool tweet this morning that Alec Bohm's home run on Saturday was the Phillies' 200th home run of the season. It's just the 9th time that they've hit 200 home runs in a season. So they're on pace for 209. They're currently 9th in Major League Baseball in total home runs. Do you know which Phillies team? I mean, it's all within the last 20 years.
Okay.
That are in the top 9. Do you have any guesses on which Phillies team has the most home runs in a season?
So the most home runs in a season by a Phillies team. I'm gonna guess like 09.
You're locked in. That's
09.
exactly right.
Yeah, I mean, obviously 09, you had Howard, you still had Worth, you had Utley, obviously Rollins, Victorino, like all those guys were good. Obviously Howard was good for it, but a lot of guys that were in that 20 home run range to 25 home runs. So that makes sense. 09 makes sense. Oh, they had Ibanez in 09 too.
They did.
So there's another guy that could hit the ball out of the yard. Yeah. So, and this year's team, obviously Schwarber has 53 and Harper has 27, but then after that, there's a lot. I think Bohm is either the 8th or 9th guy to reach double figures. Stott's in double figures. Marsh in double figures. Yeah. Kepler's obviously in double figures. Turner's in double figures. JT. A lot of guys that are in that like 10 to 20 range. So interesting. Okay. Yeah. 2009 makes sense. But this team is, it's a pretty impressive company.
And it didn't really look like that to begin the season. It was kind of worrisome even halfway through the season and near the All-Star break. It was like some of these guys, like, I don't know if you're even going to get to 15.
Right.
And now that they've really stepped up. And so pretty cool. Yeah. 2023 actually is in second with 220 home runs, which is that was the year in August when they had like 50 or
yes.
something like that?
Yeah. They had like the most home runs in a month in like franchise history or something. Yeah. Like 50 homers.
54. Yeah.
Yeah. 23. Like yeah. Obviously Schwarber, Harper, Castellanos had quite a few that year.
Yeah.
There were a number of guys. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. 2023. That makes sense too. Interesting. All right.
Just a fun little stat from our guy, Schmankman.
Yes. Yeah.
Hey, T-Mac, another great day, best fans, the best city. How lucky are we?
It doesn't get much better than this. But I got to tell you, our guy missed a lot of the game last night. I think he missed almost a full inning going to the bathroom.
Yeah, I noticed. I mean, he said he kept feeling like he had to go, and then nothing would come out.
I think he went back 3 times before the 7th inning. Now, that's more than just having too many beer baths.
Nope, it sounds like BPH. It's more common than you think.
Well, it's time to stop holding it about prostate health. Good thing we've got our friends at Temple Health who are way smarter about these things than we are. Let's let the doc explain. So, Doc, what's going on with our guy?
Sounds to me like he's got this problem called BPH, benign prostatic hyperplasia. It really means that guys just have trouble peeing.
But there's a solution to it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. At Temple Health, there are doctors that really specialize in BPH. Aquablation is one of those things that we offer that many people don't, and other things like prostate enucleation as well. Both of them are minimally invasive that really help guys.
And for most patients, they come out of it feeling fine.
Yeah, I think most patients have a really simple recovery that's straightforward.
Well, that's a big win, because it's better than going to the bathroom a dozen times during a ball game.
Oh, absolutely. These results for guys are long-lasting. Let's face it, prostate health shouldn't be keeping guys out of the game.
Hey, I ran into our guy again. No more back from sprints. He's back in the game.
He told me it was like the most relief he's had in years, in more ways than one. I mean, he even stayed for extra innings.
Aquablation therapy at Temple Health. Get back in the game. Visit templehealth.org.
All right, let's switch gears here before we hit on Nick Castellanos, because we have a lot to say about that. But switching gears to the pitching staff, Aaron Nola on Saturday, we are back on the seesaw. And I thought Ricky Bo's comments on post-game on Saturday night were interesting. He said that Mets start where he went 6 innings, looked great. His last 2 starts erases that.
Yeah.
Where are we back on the seesaw with Aaron Nola after kind of a rough start on Saturday night?
Yeah, it's a shame because at least this is the way I feel. Like he's been here for so long, he's been so reliable. You kind of find yourself like rooting for him, like him specifically. Like, obviously you want the team to do well, and it's good for us, and it's great for the fans. But like Nola especially just seems like, from what I can tell, a really good dude. He's been around for a while. You can tell this year's really weighed on him. He wasn't available for 3 months, and he hasn't pitched well when he's pitched. So if you see that Mets start a couple of weeks ago, and it's like, all right, he's got something. Here we go. And he's going to string these together. He's going to be just in time for the postseason. And the Royals game, he comes out and 4 innings cruising, perfect, I think, through 3 or whatever it was. And then the 5th inning gives up the homer. And then the 6th inning, it just completely unravels. And then Arizona, that start on Saturday, the Bohm play in the 1st inning, the pop-up that Bohm should have caught, that results in a run or 2. And then, he was okay. And then he gets to that 6th inning, gives up a couple of doubles. I think it was Alexander, and then James McCann got him. Those guys aren't the guys you want beating you. So he ends up, 5 1/3, 4 earned, and it's not a good line. And I just, unfortunately, I just can't see the confidence in giving him the ball right now in a postseason game. I imagine he'll get one more start, later this week, and we'll see how that goes. But I think he's going to be not in that NLDS rotation. I'm sure he'll be on the roster, but I don't know that he's going to start a game if the Phillies advance to the NLCS. I think that might be the next time he would start a game after his last regular season start. And you can't really argue with it. I just don't know how with confidence you could give him the ball, unless he's going to be on a super tight leash. And the first sign of trouble, you yank him out of there. But I just don't see it in terms of him pitching in the NLDS in a starting role, at least.
Not in the NLDS. And with the NLCS, I guess, like I said in the last podcast, I mean, maybe do you throw him out there? Yeah. Because I guess you'd throw him out there possibly in a must-win and or a clinching scenario in the NLCS if you get that far, if it's game 4 or, it could be, like I mentioned, a must-win. Do you throw him out there for 3 innings and just be like, hey, Aaron, give us 3, avoid that big inning. If he runs into trouble in one of those 3 innings, immediately go get him, and then maybe use Walker Buehler, who we'll get to here in a second, because I thought he was fantastic on Friday.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a strong possibility that the Phillies and Rob Thompson end up doing that, because it is still Aaron Nola. It's just the Aaron Nola that we've seen this season isn't what you want to see in the playoffs in a potential must-win game in basically the semifinals before the World Series in the NLCS.
Yeah, I think that he would, in a game 4 in a CS, I think would be the best spot for him.
Yeah.
The DS, though, with the off days, like they could literally just go Sanchez 1, Ranger 2, Luzardo 3, Sanchez 4, Ranger 5, which I think they'll do. And like Nola will be standing by. Like Rob Thompson made the point, he's literally never pitched out of the bullpen in his career, 11 seasons.
Yep.
So not something I think you can rely on him coming out and being like a high leverage guy. But if somebody runs into trouble early, say for argument's sake, hope it's not the case, like Jesus Luzardo gets shelled in game 3 of the DS, and then you maybe kind of have him standing by for that, or, just, I don't know. I just don't see a role for him in the starting rotation of the DS. But the CS, I think you're going to need a 4th guy. I think he's the best of some limited options right now. So that could be a possibility. But it's just weird. Like in 22, 23, and 24, it was Wheeler game 1, Nola game 2. And you don't have either of those guys, really. Like, you have Nola, but you don't have that Nola. And
Yeah.
it's just, and you still, they have a chance, which speaks to the way Sanchez is stepped up and the way Rangers pitch. And Luzardo has been really good recently. But it's just so strange going into this postseason with no Wheeler at all, and certainly not the Nola we're accustomed to the last handful of years.
It's a very different aspect coming into the 2025 postseason, as you mentioned. That is a wild thought. No Wheeler, no Nola. After those guys have really been your 1-2 for the last 4 seasons now, not even in the playoffs included, but in the regular season as well. What an interesting thought. I mean, can you imagine if Luzardo maybe struggles in the first 3 innings and here comes Aaron Nola out of the pen for an inning or 2, and then you really trust that back end of the bullpen who continues to pitch well besides Orion Kirkring? He's slowly kind of slipping out of the trust circle, but hopefully he can hit on that. What about Walker Buehler? So on Sunday, Rob Thompson mentioned that Buehler will start Thursday in the series finale against the Marlins at home. And then he was asked, I forget who asked, but they basically were like, "Oh, so you're going to go Walker?" And Rob kind of just like shook his head. And then someone else asked, "Well, was Ty going to piggyback off that?" And he goes, "We're not sure yet."
Right.
So we might not see Taijuan Walker this season unless you want to rest those guys. But the way the Phillies have it set up, it is set up for Christopher Sanchez to have 5 days rest before game 1 of the NLDS on Saturday, October 4th. But that might spell the end of Taijuan Walker's 2025 season. But Buehler really impressed me on Friday, piggybacking off Taijuan.
Mm-hmm.
He runs in a little bit of trouble in the 6th, I believe. It was either the 6th or the 7th. But the Phillies had a commanding lead already in that game.
Yep.
Ran into trouble, but he still looked like the Walker Buehler of old on Friday night.
Yeah, no, he did. He looked really good in that role, and I think they wanted to see him in that role. Obviously, in terms of the postseason, can this guy handle coming in and pitching multiple innings for us in a postseason game? And he did. Yeah, he looked great. I thought his first start against the Royals was okay, solid, but I thought he looked much better Friday night in Arizona, coming in piggybacking off of Taijuan. So yeah, I think he's in play. Like, I think he is absolutely in play for the postseason roster, whether that's the DS, CS, or whatever. But yeah, you mentioned Taijuan. I just don't think he's on the roster. Unfortunately for him, I just don't see why he would even be on the NLDS roster. He just continues to give up some runs early in these games, and then he settles down. But you just can't have that, obviously, in the postseason. A guy putting you in a 2-0 or a 3-0 hole in the first inning, and we talked about this in the podcast before. His best year with the Phillies was his first year, 23, at 15 wins, and he wasn't on the postseason roster then. And he was mad about it, which I get. And, there was a little friction between him and Rob Thompson, kind of smoothed it over in the offseason after that. But, if he's not making your DS roster after that season, he's not making it this year. So, but I do think Buehler, getting back to your question, I do think Buehler, they like what they see so far. And, we'll see how he fares again on Thursday. And if so, then I think he is absolutely in play for a postseason roster spot.
I would love if he comes out and shoves on Thursday. Just 6 scoreless innings or even a run or 2, but keeps the hits limited, maybe 5 or less. That'd be a pretty good start for Walker Buehler, and to make my confidence in him kind of skyrocket heading into the postseason. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
So speaking of Friday, I did mention at the beginning of the pod, it was we were talking about the lineup. I should have brought that up when we were talking about the runners in scoring position problems, but the Phillies hit 54. They had an 0.54 batting average with 24 strikeouts and 56 at-bats against the Dodgers in that 3-game series against their starters.
Yeah.
Maybe a cause for concern, because there's a chance that you see that Dodgers team in the NLDS the way the playoff picture looks right now.
A real good chance.
And you mentioned it today. Emmett Sheehan shoved against the Giants on Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
Again, they still won the series. You still took 2 of 3, but that is a cause of concern, because once the playoffs roll around and Shohei Ohtani maybe doesn't get pulled after 5 no-hit innings, in the NLDS, if Dave Roberts is smart manager. Yeah. But still, I mean, I don't really know. I just wanted to bring up that point just because
it's a fair point.
Kind of alarming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you mentioned Blake Snell, who completely shut them down on Wednesday. Yeah. They didn't see Yamamoto. Yeah, he was great. I think he struck out 9 or 10. Yamamoto, they didn't see. Obviously, he's been very good at times this season, so they got some depth there. Sheehan was great. Like Sunday against the Giants, he was great against the Phillies on Monday. He, for whatever reason, Dave Roberts decided to go with an opener in that game. Really? Anthony Bonda against the Phillies lefties, and sure enough, Schwarber takes him deep right off the bat. But then Sheehan came in, and it was like shutdown time for about 5 innings. And Ohtani's Ohtani. I'm interested to see how they use him, whether they start him, whether they just use him as like a roving hammer in the bullpen, to kind of come in and give him a couple multiple innings in big spots, high leverage in the postseason. But he was, 5 no-hit innings against the Phillies. Good, I will say that they saw him because they never had seen him before as a pitcher, Ohtani. So at least they got a couple looks at him. So if they see him again in October, which I'm sure they will if they meet up, they have a little bit of idea what's coming, but what's coming is pretty nasty. I mean, it's just unbelievable watching that guy pitch, throwing 100 miles an hour, the filthy breaking stuff, and then later in the game he hits his 50th home run. Like, got 5 no-hit innings and a 50th home run. It's like Ben was saying, it's like watching a little league game, like the best kid just dominating. But it's wild. But it's a concern. The Dodgers starters look really good in that series, and that DS matchup is coming quick, I think, and it's going to be here in about a week and a half. So, they got to look at these guys, but it'd be nicer if they got a look and they had a little success, which they really didn't.
Yeah, 100%. And it was funny. I was explaining it to Sophia, my girlfriend, who was she's very locked in now on the Phils and baseball and all that stuff. But on Tuesday night, I was off, so got to enjoy some time with her, even though the 10-10 stars. We had to watch Dancing with the Stars.
Sure.
It's a trade-off. You got to watch Dancing with the Stars, and then you got to turn on the Phils so I can do my job. But it was funny. She was trying to understand kind of, I'm like, hey, he's going to have to sprint in. And that guy, by the way, she's like, did he just throw 100? I was like, yeah. And I was going to sprint in and bat leadoff for the Dodgers. So it was just a fun little experiment to try to explain
about
to her. And
480 feet against David Robertson, and that was unbelievable.
Goodness.
And he took Jesus deep on Wednesday night too.
I did. And did you see the report that I guess Ohtani went up to Roberts this week or this weekend and told him that he would be down to play the outfield so they can bring him in as a reliever?
Right. Yeah. Which I mentioned there. I think that's probably pretty appealing to them to have him as like a guy that they could bring in a big spot.
100%.
Obviously, you give him a couple innings. So they've obviously been really managing his workload, but that's a huge storyline in the postseason. Just generally how the Dodgers want to utilize him, deploy him. But yeah, he's nasty, and the Phillies saw him. Got to look at him. Got to look at some of these other guys, but. The Dodgers have a lot of pitching. It's been a lot of injuries to that pitching staff over the season. They're starting to get some guys healthy now. But that's, to me, their strength come postseason time is they can throw a lot of different arms at you.
Taking 2 or 3 was still good. We'll take it. And I think that's a huge confidence boost for this team. And Rob Thompson and everybody in that clubhouse is pretty pleased for taking 2 or 3 against that team. But, man, and like as a baseball guy, if Ohtani ends up playing the outfield, I would love to just see him try to throw somebody out at home. Wouldn't that be like with the arm? It would be insane. Tommy John, post Tommy John
that's
included.
The thing. They probably don't want that.
No, exactly.
Unwinding on one, and like he hasn't thrown that distance in years.
Yeah. That'd be what a fun little storyline.
Yeah.
But hey, we're worried about the Phillies here, and whatever comes the Phillies' way in the NLDS, if they can lock that up, because it's having it's 4 games right now above the Dodgers for that second spot.
Technically 5 because of the tiebreaker. So
correct. So that's why the magic number is 2. So by Tuesday, the Phillies could clinch a bye, which would be a big thing. And if you can somehow catch the Brewers, that'd be great because home field would be awesome. But we'll see how they play this week, and we'll get a little preview before we get in. But as I mentioned, are you ready now to talk about the big news that came out on Friday? And when it came out on Friday with Nick Castellanos, he hits his 250th career home run. Great. It was awesome. What a great moment for Nick. Well deserved. It's a big milestone. 250 home runs.
A lot of home runs
for a guy like Nick Castellanos is a big deal. And it was a big home run. It gives the Phillies a 3-run cushion. They were up 3-2. It gives them a 5-2 lead late. It was a big home run. It was a big swing, especially for Nick, who is coming off the bench now and platooning and all that. Then obviously, I'm sure everybody that's listening has seen the clip now. Our guys in the booth, Scott Fransky and Ruben Amaro Jr., talked to him on the field after the game, the little walk-off interview that they do every time the Phillies win. And Nick was short right off the bat. Let's just say what it is. Hey, Nick, how'd that feel? Feel great. Okay, here we go. Right. And you knew that something was going to happen like that. Again, a man of many words, whatever. And then everything that happened in the clubhouse with the questioning between the reporters that were there and with Nick not really giving attitude, but whatever it is. I don't want to hit on it too much because the feelings that I have towards it are. I had a lot of feelings on Friday, and it's not even that I cooled down. I just kind of had these feelings kind of simmer down and kind of go away as the weekend went on. But I guess I'll get your initial takeaway of the entire event. I mean, I don't think it needs, basically, long story short, in my opinion, I don't think it needed to be as big deal as it was. Nick Castellanos said that he doesn't communicate with Rob Thompson. So that really started the questioning. And in my opinion, it was fair questioning to ask Nick how or why he's not communicating with Rob Thompson. There was a question that was asked about, hey, like all these other guys feel like that's not who Rob Thompson is. And he said, who? And he's like, well, everybody that's been winning since 2022, this
Right.
team that has been succeeding with Rob Thompson, who is a player's manager, in my opinion. And that kind of just opened up a lot of things. And obviously Nick is unhappy with the situation, as he should be. He's Nick Castellanos. He got moved to the bench. But there was points where Nick Castellanos, said, hey, like, wherever Rob plays me, whether I'm starting, whether I'm sitting, I'm doing whatever this takes to win a World Series. And I thought that was really great of Nick. I don't know, man. What was your initial takeaways of the entire situation?
Yeah, he just talks to the media so infrequently now that I feel like when he does talk, in fact, I was at the ballpark covering that Braves series at the very end of August, and that was the last time he spoke. And it was kind of the same line of questioning, like, hey, because you talk to the guy. The big story is this is a guy that played right field every day, every game last year, pretty much every game for the most part since he's been a Philly. Now he's not. And, how are you adjusting to that? How are you handling that? And the questions, with Scott and Ruben, after that game Friday night, you mentioned the big home run, milestone home run, had another big hit later in the game. And this is a game he didn't even start. He comes off the bench and has like 3 RBIs. Yeah, and the game was tight when he hit that home run. Like, just a big game for him. And like, here comes Scott, Fransky, and Ruben, like, the Phillies announcers, your home, and boy, Nick, and then it just, you said it, like the one word answers and the short, and then, it's just like, it just kind of sets the tone. And then Scott Fransky tries to ask about, you're not playing as much because that's the big storyline. And then that turns into the whole what it was. And then clubhouse is what it was. And the clubhouse, like, the reporters are asking the questions like, hey, you had a great game coming off the bench. It's not something you usually do. Have you found something in your routine? And he's like, I don't know. I'm just making up as I go along. Sometimes I hit batting practice. Sometimes I don't. And then, then eventually you get the questions about, your role and this and that. And, I'm just doing what Rob tells me to play. I don't talk to him that much. And then the headline was, I think his quote was, communication over the years has been questionable. And he says, at least for me, who growing up with my dad, it was direct and frank and to the point, and you knew where you stood and whatever else. Blunt, sorry. And then of course there's going to be follow-ups like, well, that's surprising to hear. Like Rob Thompson, everybody says one of his strengths, and then it kind of went from there. And the stuff he said about I'm here to win a World Series, John Middleton's payment to win a World Series. He didn't want to look ahead to his future. Why would I do that when we have this what could be a huge month and a half ahead of us here? That would be selfish. Great point. So I see it both ways, but I land more on just his whole demeanor sets the tone that he's unhappy. He went on Mookie Betts' podcast and kind of said these narratives are being painted that I'm unhappy. Well, they asked him.
Great question.
Yeah, what is the narrative then? Tell us. What's the narrative? Yep. And then, he's cutting off questions like, that's a trap of a question. I'm not going to answer that. So it's combative in like an understated way. And, everybody jumps on the media, on social media, but I don't know. Yeah, it's a weird situation. Obviously, it's a guy who wants to play. We all get that. But I just think there's a better way to go about answering some questions and not just kind of setting the tone, particularly in the walk-off interview on the broadcast. Like that's supposed to be more of like a celebratory, great win, good times. 100%. Ruben and Scott aren't like independent writers from different outlets. They're like working for the Phillies broadcast. And they're your guys. Yeah. And exactly. You get the one word answers right off the bat. So, I see it from a lot of different angles. The one thing I don't see is Rob Thompson being accused of a lack of communication. He goes out of his way to communicate with everybody, and he goes out of his way even with Nick. He's like, I got to talk to Nick more because he said this a few weeks ago. Nick's not used to coming off the bench, so I got to tell him, hey, you might hit here, you might hit here. He makes a lineup in days in advance. Everybody knows when they're going to play, when they're not going to play. And I thought Rob Thompson, just to finish my point, handled it well on Saturday. Saying if Nick or any other player thinks I'm not communicating well, then I'm probably not. I have to do a better job. But communication is a two-way street. My door is always open. Come in and talk to me. I'm not a mind reader. So Rob Thompson, as usual, I thought handled it great. Nick, I thought, didn't need to go there with the public critique of Rob Thompson, especially with the communication skills. It is what it is. I'm glad he's on board for obviously putting the team first, trying to win a World Series. But I think we're seeing the last of Nick in a Phillies uniform in October, and hopefully he contributes. He's going to get his chances to, but it just seems like that relationship between him and Topper is pretty strained. He said, "Hey, I got along with everybody in the clubhouse," and obviously leaves out anybody, the managers involved. But it is what it is. It makes headlines. It takes away from the fact that his 250th career home run and a big win.
Yeah.
But I just think it could have been handled better by Nick for sure.
Here's the thing. Everyone that was coming after the media too, well, why didn't you ask him about his 250th home run? Well, if he didn't start with saying that him and Rob Thompson don't communicate, they probably would have got to that.
Right.
But it's the first time that he's talked since the platoon happened. What do you expect? You have to ask these questions. It's part of the media's job. It's part of our job. And real quick, everyone coming at NBC Sports Philadelphia on Twitter, we just were taking the video. That's all. We have a camera there. It's not, but even the going against the reporters that were there, who we know and we respect, it's asinine. Like that's a good word. Like, I guess that's the best word to find. The going after the media that was just doing their jobs, asking legitimate questions. It wasn't these far-fetched questions. It's the first time that Nick Castellanos has talked since the platoon happened. So obviously they're going to ask him how he's handling it and how he's doing it. And for him to come out and kind of spill the beans right away about how he doesn't communicate with Rob Thompson, that just opens up a whole door of things. And the people saying, the outrage on Twitter really made me upset, because obviously covering the team and knowing the guys in the locker room, and then also knowing the people covering the team that are there traveling with this team. It's a long West Coast trip. The main guys are out there that need to be out there covering this team, and they do an amazing job of what they do. So to come after them is ridiculous. They're just doing their job. And I think they have to ask these questions, because Nick Castellanos is the type of guy and again, nothing wrong with this. And I love Nick. I think he's a great person. I've talked to him many times. I talked to him in London after he had a home run on the field. We had a blast that kind of, they didn't let Taryn on the field, so I had to do it. And Nick was very gracious in his time. But, just the whole fact of coming at these guys, you have to ask these questions, because the short answers, the one-word answers that Nick has notoriously given in his few years as a Philly, that's the best way to get into him. He always says that the best questions that he likes to answer are the one that are kind of open-minded. So you have to ask these kind of hard-hitting questions to see if you can get any sort of quote, instead of just, sure, yeah, I feel great, it feels awesome. Like, you have to ask these type of questions. So I don't know. That was just my little rant. And again, the people coming at the media is just insane. And the people coming at Nick, and again, that's my last point. The people coming at the media that were like, why are you starting these crazy storylines? Why are you doing all this when this team is there? Again, unfortunately, Nick started it by saying that him and Rob Thompson don't communicate. That's where the storyline came. I don't think, the guys didn't ask that. He just said, hey, me and Rob don't really communicate, which is one of the most surprising things that I've heard all year. And again, maybe that goes back to when Nick got benched in the middle of the game a few months ago in Miami. He didn't start the next day. He pulled him. He said something to Rob. Rob said it was inappropriate, and we move on. So I don't know if that's what sparked it, but.
And it's not like this new arrangement isn't working. Like, they're winning tons of games. Everybody he puts out there, including Nick now, is producing. Like, correct. It's one thing if you're not playing and you think your team's losing. Like, clearly what Rob Thompson's doing is working. And it's everybody. Max Kepler said it best a couple of weeks ago to Scott Fransky. We've all been through it. We got to swallow our pride. I went through it earlier in the year. We're all on board, same page, winning the World Series. Obviously, everybody wants to play every day. It is what it is. But, there's different ways to go about it. And Nick, again, is on board, says he wants to win a World Series, and that's what he's here to do. But yeah, it's just the whole thing unfolded kind of strangely and weirdly and contentiously and upset a lot of people. But I just thought there was a better way to go about it. And but that's the way Nick's been conducting his interviews for the most part for 4 years now.
Yeah, correct. And you and I have talked about it. That's just how it goes. But I'm glad you brought out that Max interview Max has been so good, especially to the media, even in the clubhouse. But that interview where he said, hey, we're going to put our egos to the side. I'm ready to play wherever it is. And I thought that was the perfect way to handle it. And again, like, even to come after Ruben too, and Scott in the booth, like, they asked him about the 250th home run. He said it felt great. And then they were like, okay, well, how's it in your new role? Like, they didn't skip the 250th home run. We brought that up immediately.
Yep.
And then last thing I'll say too, because because now my voice is shot. It's late Sunday night. But even the people that were coming at, I saw somebody on like TikTok, Instagram, and again, whatever they're doing for clicks or whatever. But they said it's like, is NBC, are they feeding them? Like, is the digital department feeding them these questions to get clicks and views? And it's like, are we freaking nuts?
Right.
Do you think I'm like, hey, Rube, yeah, ask him how he's feeling? Like, no, no one's doing that.
Right.
No one's doing that. There were fair questions. That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And it was handled the way it was handled. And again, I don't think there's anything more to it. The story's done. Nick wants to win a World Series. The Phillies won a World Series. The fans want to see a World Series. Let's end it at that. And I don't think there's really any drama to be had with Nick Castellanos and the rest of this Phillies team as they head into October.
Yeah, I think you're right. Move on. Everybody's said what they had to say, not said what they wanted to say, said briefly what they needed to say. But yeah, agreed. We'll see. We'll see if it's handled any differently. But I mean, at this point, he's talked a couple times about it. He's been asked about it. So I think it's hopefully water under the bridge and move forward.
And like you said, he's producing. He had an RBI. He prevented a shutout on Sunday. So if Nick can just keep doing Nick things, this team has a good chance at winning the World Series, whether it's off the bench or whether it's starting in right field, whatever it is. If Nick can contribute, they're in good shape. So
sure.
All right. On that note, let's go home. Let's go to bed.
Let's do it.
Is there anything else you got? I'm trying to think. Was there any fun stuff? Not really, right?
Not really. Nothing much fun on Sunday other than
not
watching the end of the Eagles game on the in the newsroom before the Phillies started. But I think we're good. I think we touched on everything.
Sweet. Yeah. I was, speaking of that, shout out to Shawnee, your son, and for everyone watching that video. It literally, one of my coworkers literally pointed at me and said, grab the camera, grab the microphone. We're going out and interviewing these crazy fans. And I had people jumping on me after that Eagles game. Literally, the Phillies games are getting ready to start, and I get thrown into this and going to talk to some fans, which is always fun. We always have a good time talking to Eagles fans after a crazy win like that. So yeah, go Birds, man. What a good win for them. They're 3-0.
Yeah.
And what a fun few weeks of this could be in Philadelphia sports with the Phillies and the Eagles and Flyers hockey getting going, Sixers basketball getting ready to get started with their media day coming up this weekend. It's always a fun time, especially in 2022 when they had the World Series and the Eagles were doing their Eagles stuff, and in 2020 their Eagles stuff. I don't know, man. Let's
No, October's fun. October's fun, man. It should be a fun month. Eagles finding ways to win. Phil's hopefully playing deep into October. The other team's starting up. Exciting stuff. College basketball starting up. College football in full swing. Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, college football is done for me, so we'll worry about that a later pod. But yeah, hey, the Phils, they welcome the Marlins in for a 3-game series starting on Tuesday, a good and a much needed off day on Monday, then invite the Twins and Mick Abel into town on Friday through Sunday with Fan Appreciation Day, which should be a fun final 6 games. And I can't believe that we're sitting here with 6 games left remaining on the season. What a time flies, buddy. So
sure does.
Well, hey, thanks for listening to the Phillies Talk Podcast presented by Team Toyota. I am Spencer McKercher, once again joined by Sean Kane. Thank you, Sean. Hopefully we'll talk to you guys here at some point next week, and hopefully it's all positive news as the Phillies get ready for another crazy Red October.